Let me make sure this is recording. It is. So apparently, when I had the podcast on Saturday, it didn't go through. So I wanted to make sure that I redid this because I was using my headset because our parents were awake and listening to the Fox News and blah, blah, blah. So I had to wear my headset so I couldn't hear them, and not realizing that the headset was cutting off the noise of me talking. So I don't have my camera, I don't have my lighting, I don't have my microphone. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. And it is what it is. I just want to make sure that you guys have the information that I was sharing about fasting, because we have this fasting coming up January 6th to the 9th. And I just want to make sure that you guys totally understand what is coming, how is it going to work, and why do a 3-day fast. So welcome to the Larson Health Podcast, where we bridge science, nutrition, and functional medicine to help you heal from the inside out. I'm Kim Larson. I'm a certified functional nutrition coach, Fast Like a Girl coach, and founder of Larson Health Weight Loss and LarsonNutrition.com, as well as LarsonBotanicals.com. Here we talk about real health transformation, how food, fasting, and lifestyle can change your hormones, your metabolism, and longevity. Today, we're going deep into fasting, what actually happens in the human body during a 3-day water fast supported with electrolytes, and what the science truly shows, and why this length of fast has become such a focal point in metabolic and longevity conversations. I want to start by saying something that often gets lost in fasting discussions is fasting is not a cleanse. It can be cleansing to the body, and it's not starvation. It is a biological state that humans evolved to enter periodically. But it is also a stress, and a stress is only therapeutic when it is applied intentionally for the right length of time and followed by proper recovery. So let's walk through the way your body experiences it. When food intake stops, your body does not panic. It actually reorganizes, because our bodies were meant to do this. I mean, you think about feast or famine, right? When there were cavemen, right? The cavemen didn't have times where they were eating all the time. They didn't have a refrigerator where they could walk to. They didn't have a grocery store that could send them SpaghettiOs and ho-hos and sodas, right? They didn't have this. What they had was feast or famine, when they could hunt and it was the season and they could get proper foods. They would have the proper foods and they would be able to eat, and feast. But at times when it was lean, or maybe it was dry seasons, or maybe it was they'd have to migrate in order to get the animals and the plants that they needed, that it could be a famine. So they could go 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, who knows how long they would go without food. And this was just normal. And so when food intake stops, your body it doesn't panic. It actually reorganizes. And so for the first several hours after your last meal, you're still in what researchers call the post absorption phase, right? So you still have glucose, right? Moving around your body, it's circulating throughout, because you had, whatever your last meal was, your body is still working through that. So circulating glucose from your previous meal is being used. Insulin is still present, and your metabolism is still partially driven by incoming nutrients. This phase is metabolically unremarkable. It's just digestion finishing. And so before we keep going, I want to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor, Larson Botanicals. When we talk about fasting, metabolic repair, and cellular healing, I always remind people that what you don't expose your body to matters just as much as what you eat. That includes what you put on your skin and what you're breathing in your home. Larson Botanicals was created around that exact philosophy. Organic ingredient skincare and candles. No hormone disrupting ingredients, no synthetic fragrances, no junk. Your body has to detox from what it's trying to heal. So these are products designed to support a low tox lifestyle, not compete with it. So if you're already doing the work with food, fasting, and lifestyle, this is an easy way to make your environment aligned with your health goals too. So you can find everything at larsonbotanicals.com. We've got skin serum, face cream, candles, because I love my home to smell nice, but I don't want the toxins. All right, so back to fasting. As you move into the first full day of a water fast, your liver begins to take center stage. So what happens is glucogen, which is the stored form of glucose, it becomes the primary source of blood sugar. So humans can store roughly 80 to 100 grams of glycogen in the liver, and that store is designed to buffer us through the short-term food scarcity. As glycogen is broken down, insulin levels fall and glycogen rises. And so this signaling the body that external fuel is no longer available and internal energy systems must take over. This hormonal shift is not subtle. Lower insulin changes how the kidneys handle sodium, which is one of the reasons people often feel lightheaded, fatigued, or headachy during early fasting. Insulin normally tells the kidneys to retain sodium. And so when insulin drops, sodium is excreted more readily and water follows. This is not a detox, it is basically renal physiology. This is also why electrolytes are not optional during a multi-day water fast. They are a safety tool, not a crutch. So by the end of the 24 hours, liver glycogen is significantly depleted for most people. And so at this point, the body must pivot, right? So fatty acids are released from the adipose tissue and transported to the liver, where they are converted into ketone bodies, primarily beta hydroxybutyrate. So this metabolic transition is often described in the literature as flipping the metabolic switch. So you just flip a switch, and has been well characterized in human metabolic research. There's someone with online library.wiley.com. So I want to pause here for a second, because when we talk about cellular repair and stress adaptation, I think it's important to zoom out a little bit, right? We can't ask our bodies to repair, regenerate, and reset through fasting or any other tool while constantly surrounding ourselves with products that disrupt our hormones or add toxic load. That's why I'm so intentional about Larson Botanicals. The skincare and candles are made with organic ingredients, thoughtfully sourced essential oils, and absolutely no hormone disrupting chemicals. They're designed to support your nervous system and your skin, not stress them. So fasting is about reducing unnecessary input so the body can focus on repair. Then low tox skincare and clean burning candles and cleaning products are a natural extension of the same philosophy. You can explore the full line at larsonbotanicals.com, and there's always new products coming soon. Now let's talk about what actually happens when insulin drops and ketones rise. Now ketones are like amazing for your brain. So ketones are not merely an alternate fuel. They are signaling molecules. Beta hydroxybutyrate influences gene expression. This is amazing. It also influences inflammation pathways and mitochondrial efficiency. So this is one of the reasons people often describe mental clarity emerging during fasting. So what will happen after the first 24 hours of fasting, your body really starts to clean up. Really after 17 hours, you get autophagy, and that's cleaning up old dead cells or cells that are dying. And your system gets really cleaned up. And then your body starts to heal itself. So when you get into 3 and 5 day water fasts, your body actually will start to repair. So I'll do another podcast about doing longer fasts, but it's amazing. So if you have Achilles problems, if you have arthritis problems, if you have any kind of inflammation in your body, these 3 day water fasts will really help your body heal itself. And so, especially with the ketones, the brain, once adapted, it runs efficiently on ketones. And ketones themselves reduce oxidative stress in neurons. I mean, this is amazing. You can create your own ketones. So as the fast progresses into the second day, insulin remains suppressed. Ketone production increases, and fat oxidation becomes dominant energy pathway. This is where many people experience the subjective sense that something has shifted. Hunger often quiets, so the first 24 hours you can be a little hungry. That's why I take some peptides that help quiet the hunger noise. And so I won't be hungry. The last time I ate was like 6 p.m. last night, and then I won't eat again until maybe noon, 1 o'clock. I don't know, whenever I might feel a little hungry. So hunger often quiets after the first 24 hours, not because the body no longer needs energy, but because these ketones blunt hunger hormones such as ghrelin. And at the cellular level, this low insulin, low nutrient environment activates nutrient sensing pathways that have been studied extensively in longevity research. And one of the most discussed is autophagy, the cellular recycling system that breaks down damaged proteins and dysfunctional cellular components. So this is what I love about autophagy. That's why I try to at least fast for 17 to 20 hours on a regular basis, because it's going through and cleaning up dead cells, especially as we age, right? But throughout life, we have these cells that start to die off or start to get old and break down. And so when you're going into these regular fasts of over 17 hours, the autophagy is kicking in, and it's not a new wellness trend. It's a fundamental biological process that earned the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2016 for its discovery and characterization. So the Nobel Committee specifically highlighted how cells activate autophagy during periods of starvation to maintain cellular integrity. It's amazing. This is a nobelprize.org prizes/medicine/2016 press release. What's important to understand, and what often gets misrepresented, is that autophagy is not an on-off switch that flips at a precise hour. It is a continuum, and it's different for everybody. So if you're metabolically efficient, it might turn on at 16 or 15 hours. If you have a lot of toxins in your body and your body is trying to heal itself, it could take longer to get into autophagy. That's why it's really important to get your body metabolically flexible so that it can switch between autophagy and using up insulin and switching back and forth, so that your body is just it's a machine, really. It's a living biological machine that you can actually heal it on a regular basis if you're doing these regular fasts. So like once a week, do a 24-hour fast. So what often gets misrepresented is that autophagy is not an on-off switch that flips at a precise hour. It's a continuum, and its activity increases as nutrient availability decreases. Human data suggests that longer fast windows increase autophagy related signaling, but measuring whole body autophagy in living humans is complex and indirect. So reviews of fasting induced autophagy emphasizes that while the mechanism is clear, the magnitude varies by tissue, metabolic health, age, and prior diet. So that's why cleaning up your diet, like if you're eating highly processed foods, it does take a while. But I can tell you, during COVID, I was eating, frozen pizzas baked in the oven. And I was having tubs of cookie dough and scooping it out and putting it into pans and making fresh cookies. The whole house smelled amazing. But all that highly processed diet, within a year, I had high blood pressure, pre-diabetes. Now, granted, I was starting to go through perimenopause at this time. But I literally had high blood pressure, high triglycerides, pre-diabetes, arthritis in my right knee. And I had no idea what was going on, but I knew that I used to be a runner. I used to be a competitive bodybuilder. I used to be really healthy. I used to go around and I'd keep my little cooler with me when I was going to work. I used to work for a wine and spirit distributor. And I would bring my chicken breast. I would bring my broccoli or my green beans or whatever vegetable I had. And I would eat that on the road instead of stopping at a Burger King or a McDonald's or a whatever. for my lunch, and to save money also, so I wouldn't be eating out all the time. Because it's amazing when you eat out all the time, how much money you waste on eating out. And you don't know, are they using seed oils, right? The gluten that they have in a burger is inflammatory. It's made of a bunch of chemicals and it's sprayed with glyphosate. Glyphosate, think about glyphosate. It used to be called Roundup. It used to be called Agent Orange. It used to be called all these different names, but it's all the same. It's all chemicals that cause cancer, that cause disease. It causes all kinds of problems. So it doesn't mean that I don't eat bread, but I eat a non-bromated fermented bread. So this bread it's aged naturally. It's not sprayed with chemicals to age the bread so that it gets doughy faster, like every conventional bread that you find in the grocery store. It is non-bromated. So it's aged naturally. And that way the gluten actually develops on its own, or the doughiness develops on its own. And then it's fermented. So it hasn't caused the same inflammatory markers. I've gotten rid of my Hashimoto's. I've gotten rid of my diabetes, my high blood pressure, my high triglycerides. I have nothing anymore. I don't take any medications. I have no diseases. So it's amazing what'll happen when you start to eat a clean diet of non-processed foods. It doesn't mean that I don't ever have processed foods, but I could tell you for Christmas, I made cookies and not a single one had sugar. I had made one with bananas. So the bananas were mush. So of course it had the sugars from the bananas, but it had all the fiber in there. I had oats in it, and these were organic, whole oats. And then I had some chocolate in there. I used Calabo chocolate. So we chopped up the chocolates, this big brick of chocolate. It's like literally this thick. And so we literally had this going, and made all these cookies. We made peanut butter. So I used a non-GMO peanut butter, and the cookies were so good. I hope everybody loved them. We just had these cute little boxes that folded up, and we put all the cookies in there, and we had some left over that we enjoyed. And it's amazing how the oatmeal ones were so filling. So anyway, by the time a fast reaches the third day, the body is firmly operating in a ketone dominant state. Fat is the primary fuel. Insulin is really low. Growth signaling pathways like IGF-1 are suppressed, and cellular stress resistant pathways are upregulated. The suppression of IGF-1 is particularly interesting because IGF-1 is associated with growth and proliferation. Temporarily lowering growth signals allows the body to shift resources towards maintenance and repair. This is where research into fasting and stem cell biology enters the conversation. Now, people pay thousands of dollars for stem cells. They go out and to help repair their bodies and to create younger skin and repair your cells, cellular health, repair your joints, get rid of damage that's happening to your body. So when the fasting and stem cell biology enters the conversation, and it's crucial to talk about it accurately, a landmark paper published in Cell demonstrated that prolonged fasting reduces IGF-1 and PKA signaling, which in turn promoted stress resistance and regenerative capacity in hematopoietic stem cells in animal models with supportive human data. This is published in PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. This does not mean that fasting magically regenerates all of your tissues. It means that nutrient deprivation alters growth signaling in ways that may favor repair and renewal processes under specific conditions. So this nuance matters, especially for an audience that values science over slogans. Now we need to address the question of electrolytes, because this is where functional safety forward fasting diverges from dogma. During fasting, insulin suppression increases urinary sodium loss. So because this is a natural process that happens, you actually need sodium. I get about 2,000 milligrams of sodium and not buy packaged foods. Because I eat whole foods, there is no salt. So I actually add salt to my food. Now I usually use a sea salt of some sorts, and so it might have some natural minerals in it, but it's not enough natural minerals. So what I do is I add LMNT to my water, or you can get some liquid electrolytes. You can get, depending on how much money you want to spend, or you could use a Redmond's salt. Redmond's, it has a little bit of minerals in it. It's not a lot, but it does have some minerals in it that will help support you. And that's a decent enough salt that you can use. So because potassium and magnesium can follow with the salt that is depleted. So blood pressure may drop. This is why some people get dizziness or weakness, or they might get heart palpitations, or fatigue can appear. And not because fasting is inherently harmful, but because the body's fluid and mineral handling has changed. So this is why it's really important to get electrolytes while you're doing this fast. So scientific reviews of prolonged fasting protocols describe electrolyte management as part of the responsible fasting care, especially beyond 24 hours. In medically supervised fasting programs, sodium intake is often maintained to prevent hypertension and excessive mineral loss. And you can find that in pmc.ncbi, nih.gov. Adding electrolytes does not break the fast in a metabolic sense. It does not raise insulin, it does not shut down ketosis, and it does not negate fasting physiology. What it does is it reduces unnecessary strain on the cardiovascular and nervous systems. So this distinction is critical, especially for women, active individuals, or those with lower baseline blood pressure, like I do. Now, we need to talk honestly about where benefit ends and risk begins, because this is where responsible education lives, right? A 3-day water fast sits at an interesting intersection in the research. It is long enough and meaningfully engage ketosis, long enough to meaningfully engage ketosis, autophagy related signaling, because it really maximizes autophagy, maximizes at that 72 hours, and growth factor suppression, but short enough that in generally healthy adults, the risk of serious complications remains relatively low when electrolytes are supported and refeeding is handled properly. So I'm going to talk about the refeeding as well, because you need to go through this process of refeeding your body properly, not with processed foods, not with junk food, and not jumping right in to have a big cheeseburger, because you're going to have a lot of gut-wrenching problems. And so you want to heal your gut with the refeeding and go into it gently. And then you can actually have your meal the next day. So beyond 3 days, the risk-benefit ratio shifts. Electrolyte imbalances become more likely. Lean tissue loss can accelerate. So meaning you might start losing more muscle. Uric acid levels can rise, and refeeding syndrome becomes a genuine concern. So refeeding syndrome is not a detox reaction. It's a potentially dangerous metabolic shift involving phosphorus, potassium, and magnesium when food is reintroduced after prolonged nutrient deprivation. So this is a study that was found in ncbi.gov. This is why I often say that the fast is not the heroic part. The refeed is. The refeed is really the heroic part. The way you come out of a fast determines whether the intervention was restorative or destabilizing, right? So why do a 3-day fast if you're not actually going to treat it like it is of a healing for your body and give it the nutrients and proper refeeding that it needs to actually do and support the work that your fasting has done? So another misconception worth addressing is the idea that fasting automatically improves insulin sensitivity in all contexts. And so while fasting often improves metabolic markers in insulin resistance individuals, Expert reviews point out that prolonged fasting induces a physiological adaptive insulin resistance in peripheral tissues. This allows glucose to be spared for tissues that absolutely require it, while others run on fat and ketones. That's an academic.oop.com. This is not pathological, but it reinforces the idea that fasting is a metabolic state, not a moral virtue. Now, when people ask whether black coffee or tea is allowed during a water fast, the scientific answer is that unsweetened, non-caloric beverages do not meaningfully disrupt fasting metabolism for most people. So I will drink water, and I have electrolytes in the water, and that's all I will have. I might have a black coffee. I will not put anything in it. I might put some, I shouldn't say that. I might put some MCT oil in it because that is shown to not cause any problems as either. So Johns Hopkins and the Cleveland Clinic both describe fasting protocols that allow water, black coffee, and unsweetened tea in the hopkinsmedicine.org health/wellness and prevention intermittent fasting article. So a controlled study examined black coffee consumption during fasting. Blood tests found no significant disruption of key metabolic markers. Now, before closing, I want to be very clear about who should not attempt a 3-day water fast without medical supervision. Individuals who are pregnant or breastfeeding, those with a history of eating disorders, type 1 diabetes, advanced kidney disease, significant cardiac arrhythmias, recurrent gout, or those on insulin or blood pressure lowering medications should approach fasting cautiously and with clinical oversight. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm a functional nutrition coach, but I am not a doctor, so I'm not going to be able to give you the clinical oversight. But I can tell you that a 3-day water fast, if you're not pregnant or with advanced kidney disease or having eating disorders or type 1 diabetes, you'll be good. So these are not disclaimers. These are respect for human variability. So what is the real value of a 3-day water fast with electrolytes? It's not a punishment. It is not purification. It is a temporary metabolic reset that allows insulin to fall, fat oxidation to rise, growth signaling to pause, and cellular maintenance pathways to engage. So meaning that autophagy goes in and it cleans up all the dead cells. You have insulin falling because your body has used up whatever insulin you have. Now, if you have you've been eating a lot of sweets and sugar and all that jazz, it could take several fasts to help you with this. And that's why doing intermittent fasting on a regular basis and changing up the intermittent fasting. So I might, like tonight, I'm probably going to have a late dinner. I might not eat till 7 or 8 o'clock because I'm going out with some friends tonight. It depends on when they get off work. So if I don't eat until 7 or 8 o'clock, so tomorrow then I won't eat until maybe 1 or 2 o'clock. So I'm going to try to push my fast. So fat oxidation. So when it is a temporary metabolic reset that allows insulin to fall, fat oxidation to rise, growth signaling to pause, and cellular maintenance pathways to engage. So it can quiet the food noise. So you will be a little hungry the first 24 hours, but after that, you just don't have any noise. So it resets your appetite awareness and creates metabolic flexibility when done intentionally and recovered from properly. And that's exactly how I'm approaching my January fast, as a teaching tool, a physiological experiment for yourself, and a reminder that healing is not about extremes, but about understanding the body deeply enough to work with it. As we start talking about refeeding and coming out of a fast, I want to share something that often gets overlooked. Fasting isn't about doing more. It's about removing what the body doesn't need anymore so healing can happen. And that principle doesn't stop with food. Larson Botanicals was built for people who care about what goes into their bodies and what goes on their bodies. What goes on their bodies: organic ingredient skincare, clean candles, no synthetic fragrances, no endocrine disrupting chemicals, just simple, intentional products that support your health instead of fighting it. So if you're creating a healing routine about fasting, gut health, hormones, or metabolic repair, this is an easy place to clean things up without overwhelm. You can find everything at larsonbotanicals.com. So now let's finish this conversation about how to break a fast the right way. As we talk about fasting, we have to talk just as seriously about refeeding, because the body that comes out of a 3-day water fast is not the same as the body that went into it. After 72 hours without food, digestion has been intentionally quiet. Stomach and acid production has been lower. Digestive enzymes have been downregulated. Bile flow has been slowed. And the gut microbiome has not been receiving its usual substrates. This is not damage, it is conservation. The body has shifted resources away from digestion and towards survival, repair, and metabolic adaptation. So when food is reintroduced, the goal is not to reward yourself. Oh my God, I'm going to have that Twinkie, or I'm going to have that ho-ho, or I'm going to have, a cheesecake. So it's not a reward for yourself to make up the lost calories. The goal is to gently reactivate digestion, support electrolyte balance, and avoid overwhelming a system that has been intentionally resting. Right? Your body's been it's really good to give your digestive system a rest. And so when you do give it a rest, you don't want to overwhelm it right away. Because I can tell you what happened when we did our last 3-day water fast. It was my birthday, so we went out for a steak dinner. I started off with the vegetables, and we did have some bone broth before we went out. And then 2 hours later, I had some kefir. And then we went out and I had the vegetables first, the steamed vegetables, but then I had a steak. And my stomach was hurting. So you really want to take it easy on yourself and go easy. That was my experiment with what would happen if I didn't follow everything properly. I should have waited to the next day to have any protein. So this is where bone broth plays a foundational role. It has protein, but it's just a warm liquid protein. It contains amino acids such as glycine, proline, and glutamine, which support the intestinal lining and help stimulate gastric secretions without demanding heavy digestion. So this is why bone broth, I'll just heat up like a cup of bone broth, maybe 2 cups of bone broth in a pan, and I'll drink that. So it's glycine in particular has calming effects on the nervous system and supports bile flow, which is essentially for fat digestion as the body transitions back toward mixed fuel use. Clinically, this makes sense. After fasting, starting with easily absorbed amino acids and minerals helps signal the gut that digestion is coming back online without triggering the insulin spikes or electrolyte shifts that can occur when carbohydrate heavy meals are introduced too quickly. This approach aligns with what we understand about minimizing refeeding stress and supporting gastrointestinal recovery after periods of nutrient deprivation, as discussed in clinical reviews of refeeding physiology, again in NCBI and IH.gov books. So after bone broth, the next layer is fermented foods. And this is where we move from simply restarting digestion to actively supporting the gut microbiome. So during fasting, microbial activity shifts. Some bacteria thrive in low substrate environments, others decrease in abundance. So when feeding resumes, the microbial ecosystem responds rapidly. And what activates first is introducing fermented foods like sauerkraut, kefir, yogurt, or low sugar kombucha. These all provide beneficial microbes along with organic acids that gently stimulate digestion and support gut barrier function. So there is strong evidence that fermented foods can actually positively influence microbial diversity and immune signaling. A randomized controlled trial published in Cell demonstrated that diets rich in fermented foods increased microbiome diversity and reduced inflammatory markers in humans. I'm going to grab some water. So while the study was not conducted specifically in post-feeding individuals, the findings are highly relevant to refeeding because microbial diversity and inflammation control are exactly what we want to support during this transition. The key here is small amounts, small. So meaning half a cup to a cup of fermented foods are potent. A few bites of sauerkraut, a small serving of kefir or yogurt, or a modest amount of kombucha is enough to signal microbial repopulation without overwhelming the gut or causing bloating. From there, we move into steamed vegetables, which serve as a bridge between liquid nutrient and full meals. And steamed vegetables are soft, low fiber compared to raw vegetables, which are really high in fiber, and you really have to chew them. And your stomach really has to go through a lot to break that down. So the steamed vegetables are soft and easier to digest. And cooking breaks down the plant cell walls. It reduces the mechanical strain on the gut while still delivering minerals, antioxidants, and gentle prebiotic fibers that feed beneficial bacteria. So you have the bone broth that helps repair the lining or keep the lining smooth. Then you give it like something like kefir or kimchi or sauerkraut. And you just need a little bit. And that helps refeed the good guys, the soldiers in your stomach that are helping your stomach repair itself. And so when you give it these prebiotic fibers, and then probiotic nutrients, and then you give it prebiotic fibers that feed the beneficial bacteria, you're really creating an environment for your stomach that it's joyous. So when you try to break your fast, we start the fast in the evening. So we start it like you have your dinner and that's your last meal. And then you'll have electrolytes. Maybe you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. So you have enough time to digest. You're going to digest that food actually for the next, 24 hours, because that's how long it really takes to digest food. So that's why when you're eating and snacking all the time, your body never gets the time to digest the food unless you're fasting long enough to allow it to really digest. Now there's, I don't know if you guys have heard of Brian, I'm trying to think of his last name. He's the guy who sold his software company, and he's the biohacking for living for a long time. I think he's going to try to live to 130 or 40. Anyway, so he eats 3 meals all 2 hours apart, and he's done eating by 11 a.m. and then he doesn't eat again until the next morning. Now I'm sure he does fasts as well, but he gets 2,200 grams of calories. He gets 100 and I think 30 or 40 grams of protein, and he's eating mostly vegetables. So this is amazing to see that you can get all that protein from your vegetables, right? Beans and rice is actually a complete protein. So it's amazing if you want to be a vegetarian, what you can do. Anyway, this beneficial bacteria, this supports your bowel motility and microbial recovery without the fermentative overload that can occur when raw vegetables or large salads are introduced too quickly. That's why I had those gut problems, right? I had some steamed broccoli, and I think there were some green beans or spinach or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was too much. I ate way too much, and I was hurting. So physiological, this progression makes sense, right? You start, it mirrors how digestion reawakens itself. Liquids first, then soft low residual foods, then gradually increasing complexity. This approach aligns with clinical guidance around refeeding after periods of caloric restriction, whether gradual escalation of food texture and metabolic demand, reduced gastrointestinal distress, and metabolic instability. What I want my listeners to understand is that this is not about perfection. It's about respecting the state your body is in. So after a 3-day water fast, your insulin sensitivity, your electrolyte handling, and your gut signaling are temporarily altered. Gentle refeeding allows those systems to recalibrate without shock. This is also why breaking a fast with ultra-processed foods, large sugar loads, or alcohol often leads to symptoms people mislabel as detox bloating. Fatigue, palpitations, brain fog. These are not signs that fasting worked. They are signs that the refeed was too abrupt for the physiological state the body was in. So, in functional nutrition, we often say that the fast sets the stage, but the refeed determines the outcome. A well executed refeed supports metabolic flexibility, preserves lean tissue, your muscles, it stabilizes your blood sugar, and reinforces the benefits people seek from fasting in the first place. And this is especially important for women in midlife. Muscle preservation, hormone signaling, and gut resilience matter far more than how long you can go without food. The goal is not endurance, it is adaptation. So if you're joining me for a 3-day water fast with electrolytes, understand this. The fast does not end with when you eat again. It ends when your digestion is stable, your energy is steady, and your body feels nourished, not shocked. This is how fasting becomes a therapeutic tool instead of metabolic stressor. You can listen to the Larson Hill podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and watch full episodes on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and snippets on social media like Instagram and TikTok, where I also share behind-the-scenes clips, recipes, and bonus insights from my coaching practice. And if you're ready to take your health to the next level, visit larsonnutrition.com to learn about my personalized programs, hormone supportive meal plans, recipes, blog insights, and one-on-one functional nutrition coaching. I hope you have a great